Well, I think the best aspect I can take is my first-hand experiences as a regular employee, entry level, minimum wage, working my way into management and ownership. So my first-hand knowledge, both of the employee side of it, what they're going through, and the employer, and the regulations they have to deal with, the tax issues they have to deal with, and the business climate and economic impacts that employers have to deal with as they're considering whether or not to grow or hire. That first-hand knowledge is what I can take and translate that into policy to better enable employers to hire while still making sure employees are getting taken care of. Yeah, that issue ties right back into job creation. I think that's going to be one of my driving forces when I go down there. The two big issues of my campaign are balancing the budget, getting a budget that makes sense, both short-term and long-term, and getting job creation turned around. But I don't want to get job creation turned around so we can get more money into Springfield. I want to get job creation turned around so we can get more money into the regular people who earned it. The budget needs to get balanced by Springfield knowing how to spend, because they're getting plenty of money. Revenue is at a high. They just keep spending more, and they really need to learn how to budget. I became what I did, starting as low as I did, because I knew how to budget. I had my house paid off by the time I was 25, had my cars paid off at the same time, owned my business by the time I was 26, so I knew how to manage a budget. And that's something Illinois needs to learn how to do. Well, I think there's a couple different steps we need to take. The first step is legislators should not have pensions. I think it's a conflict of interest, and they're supposed to be citizen legislators, part-time legislators. There's no part-time work that deserves a full-time pension. So step one is getting all legislators off it. Step two is making sure only public employees qualify for a public pension. Right now we have a situation where tens of millions, even possibly into the over 100 million worth of benefits are qualified by people who aren't even public employees, people who were public employees very briefly and went on to work for unions, got special setups set for them. So that's step two. Only a public employee should qualify for a public pension. And then the last step is to look and make sure the benefits we're paying out are fair both to the employees and the taxpayers. The pension system was started up at a time when civil servants were very underpaid, and now getting a government job is considered getting a good job. You not only get comparable pay to the private sector, but you get a much better retirement that's guaranteed, great medical benefits, things that really don't have a match in the private sector anymore. So we need to find something that's a little more equitable. And yes, we need to work with them, but we're also going to have a pretty firm backbone in saying there are going to be the need to be more paid into medical benefits and pension benefits if you want to keep that same rate of return. Well, education is definitely one of the keys to lowering crime, to making sure people are making more money in the long term, which ties right into tax revenue, of course, if you're looking at it at the issue from the government. I definitely support education. I think it should be one of the priorities in the budget. It hasn't always been. And it's also one of the keys to lowering the reliance on government later. For example, if we get people educated when they're younger, get them into decent jobs and career paths, and they're able to be self-reliant instead of dependent, they're not going to be going for the government handouts for the welfare, for all the other issues that are really crushing our budget right now as well. So I would agree that short-term investing in education produces long-term benefits, but given the situation the budget's in, we're going to have to figure out how much we can actually invest at this time, because we're broke and we're getting broker every year. I oppose the expansion of gaming in Illinois as it is right now. They're using it as another way to try to raise revenue for their budget issues, but the problem is for all the expansions you also have increases in crime, you have increases in addiction, you have increases that trickle down into the local economy and into the state in general that aren't necessarily captured when the money's going to Springfield. And I also think instead of focusing on these new ways to get money out of people, which is what the gambling expansion for the state is trying to do, we need to focus on ways to balance with what we already have. Like I said, our revenue is not the problem. We have very high revenues in Illinois right now. The problem is they don't know how to budget it correctly, and trying to find ways to weasel it out of the people is not the right answer, especially given all the secondary ripple effects that happen when gambling comes to town.